Welcome to A Student of Leadership, a micro-podcast where leaders are made one habit at a time. Hosted by Rob Adams, a leadership veteran with 30 years of experience, this podcast explores key concepts that define exceptional leadership. Each episode delves into a powerful word or strategy, offering practical insights and real-world stories. Whether you're just starting out or an experienced executive, join Rob as he guides you in learning, growing, and leading with purpose.
Some days don't fall apart. They just feel very heavy. You're still performing, you're still showing up, you're still leading, but everything takes more effort than it used to. That's often how burnout begins. Hey everybody, welcome back to A Student of Leadership, powered by Unipro Food Service and our Leadership Development Program. I'm Robert Adams, your micro-podcast host, and this is episode 56. Today we're going to be talking about when leaders run empty, not because they don't care, but because they've been carrying more than they actually realize. So it's time to pull up your chair because you're at the leadership table. Real leaders, real growth, one table. Here's something important to name. Burnout is rarely caused by one bad week. It's caused by long stretches of leadership without recovery, pressure without pause, responsibility without reflection, intent without checking impact. In fact, a well-documented example of this comes from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. At JPL, teams work on missions where mistakes are costly and pressure is constant. After several high-profile project delays and failures in the late 1990s, leaders noticed something troubling. The issue wasn't talent. It wasn't commitment. It was exhaustion combined with unexamined habits. Teams were moving way too fast. Leaders were solving problems immediately. Decisions were made under pressure without structured reflection. So JPL introduced deliberate pause practices into project reviews. Not to slow the work, but to make learning more visible. Teams were required to stop and ask simple questions. What were we trying to do? What actually happened? Where did effort and impact diverge? What they discovered was critical. Leaders weren't burning out because they worked too hard. They were burning out because they kept repeating patterns that no longer fit that situation. Reflection restored capacity, not by reducing responsibility, but by improving their judgment. See, here's a myth worth challenging. Resilience means pushing through. It doesn't. Resilience means recovering intentionally. I call this capacity drain. This is when leaders give more and more energy without checking whether what they're giving is actually helping. Let's state that again. I call this capacity drain, when leaders give more and more energy without checking whether what they're giving is actually helping someone. So from a behavioral standpoint, this does make sense. When leaders skip reflection, habits go unquestioned. When habits go unquestioned, effort increases and impact, you guessed it, decreases. That gap really is exhausting. This is where the impact check becomes powerful. Just 5 minutes. Not to critique yourself, but to notice. What did I intend today? What did people likely experience? Where did I carry more than I needed to? You see, that pause doesn't weaken leadership, it sustains it. Here's the contrast I want you to notice worth paying really attention to. You see, leaders who burn out confuse endurance with effectiveness. Leaders who recover measure impact, not effort. So take a moment for these very powerful questions. Where are you working harder without seeing better results? What leadership behavior feels necessary but leaves you completely depleted? And when was the last time you checked how you actually landed? Now, I want you to try this one time this week. At the end of one day, just one, set a 5-minute timer and ask yourself one very important question. Did my effort today match my impact? This isn't about fixing or judging. It's about just being aware and noticing. That's how resilience starts to rebuild. And if this episode resonated, you're not alone. In fact, many strong leaders are quietly carrying more than they ever should. This is why we gather at this leadership table as a community, coming together to learn from each other, to build leaders who last, not just leaders who perform. Remember that food gave us our roots. Leadership gives us our purpose. Real leaders, real growth, one table. And if you want to keep learning with me throughout the week, here's where we stay completely connected. Because on Mondays, the leadership table arrives on Beehive with practical insight on building leadership resilience and capacity. When we hit that hump day on Wednesdays, the Breaking Bread, a Student of Leadership newsletter, shows up on LinkedIn, where we explore small practices that close the gap between intention and impact. And that's right, on Fridays, we finish out the week with The Mindful Leader. It lands on Substack. It offers space to reflect on how leadership actually feels, not only for you, but also for others. Yep, these are different spaces, but it is one commitment to growth. And as we finish out this episode, I am Robert Adams, your micro podcast host at A Student of Leadership, wishing you a great week ahead. I'll see you at the table next time. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of A Student of Leadership. Leadership is about who we become and how we help others grow. If you found value in this podcast, share it with a fellow leader and connect with Rob on LinkedIn or leave a review. New episodes drop weekly, so don't forget to subscribe to stay connected. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and leading with intention. Remember, great leaders are made one habit at a time. See you next time on A Student of Leadership.